Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this fabulous conversation that I have been looking forward to for weeks. I will introduce myself. My name is Taylor Ann Macey, and I am the Director of Patient Engagement at the Sumire Foundation. And for anyone unfamiliar with the Sumire Foundation, we are a nonprofit where we raise awareness for all rare neuroimmune conditions. We illuminate the darkness and help mitigate some of the isolation that can be a part of chronic illness, rare illness. And we, through this process, are able to connect with and fall in love with so many amazing people that include people like Jayne Mattingly. And if you have not heard of her, I am so thrilled that I get to introduce you to her. She is the author of This is Body Grief, Making Peace with the Loss That Comes with Living in a Body. And tonight we are going to be discussing Jayne's journey with chronic illness, the writing of this book, and there is so much wisdom in here that I am just really, really excited and eager to explore. So, with that, Jayne, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. Oh my goodness, I'm excited to be here.
Yes, I just am so excited. And I also have to say, I was like fangirling to Samira the other day because I was looking
Mm.
at the website and like all of your photos, I was like, who is this goddess? Like I
Oh,
your book and knew your story, but I was like, she is glowing.
oh,
Wise. She is just
oh my
like I
goodness.
could just your essence was just incredible. So
Thank you.
I
That's
want to
so
compliment you on
kind.
that. So with that, let's just begin with how you would introduce yourself within the context of this book.
Yeah. I'm Jayne Mattingly, and I have my master's in clinical mental health counseling. And I came upon this term body grief in my own professional workings. I worked with eating disorders. That was really my specialty. That is what I was really zoned in on. I had an eating disorder starting at the age of 10 years old. It went undiagnosed, dismissed, even though I was seeing therapists for anxiety and depression, and I had a really supportive family. But it's really common to go dismissed, especially in those years in the 2000s, because eating disorders don't have a look. As we know now, we know more about eating disorders. And when I was getting my master's, I was working many jobs, 5 jobs at the time in my 20s, and kind of thought I could do it all, as many, people at that age think that they can. And I was at a bar class, like a workout bar class, Pilates type thing. And um, I was tucking my little heart away, and I lost my sight. And after many ER visits, it turned out I had a rare neurological disorder called intracranial hypertension, which is when your cerebral spinal fluid, basically, in a simple terms, your cerebral spinal fluid raises to an abnormal amount. It bruises the brain. It can make you go blind. It can be fatal if it's too much. And I had brain surgery number one of 19 in the last, or brain and spine surgeries number one of 19 in the last 7 years. I'm now a wheelchair user. I'm disabled, have a service dog, many other diagnoses. I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is actually a genetic disorder, meaning I was born with it. But I then realized, oh my goodness, I'm experiencing body grief. It's a term that I had been using with my eating disorder clients because, they were experiencing it, and that it was uh something that they were grieving, a body that they once thought they could live in, a life that they wanted to have, that they were once promised. But for me, I was realizing, oh my goodness, you know, I never really realized I could be faced with something like disability. I was so ableist also. I was doing events prior to my illness where I thought I was being so inclusive, saying things like, work out for what your body can do, not for what it looks like.
Mm.
That was quite an ableist statement. So my framework has completely changed. My outlook on life has completely changed. Understanding ableism and understanding chronic illness and grief.
Wow, I was so struck by your story for a variety of reasons. I think there is so much that every single person can relate to in terms of body grief because every person experiences it to one degree or another. I think those of us in the chronic illness community tend to just have it more at the forefront of our awareness, even though we might not know that that's what it is.
Yeah.
We just are more aware of how our body is or isn't functioning. And because of all of the isms, which I really want to dive into,
Yeah.
um, there's an extra added layer of pain because of that, right? And I think I had this realization when I was diagnosed with NMOSD, where a lot of people online, when they're experiencing something, they'll say, like, why is nobody talking about this? And it's like, well, people are, but you just don't know because it's not a problem for you until it is.
Ah,
And as you were discussing the different isms, specifically ableism, it's like people are talking about that. And we those of us that might not have had any type of disability or are newly facing that, it's like we think that no one's been talking about it because we haven't been aware of it. And
right.
I just was so impressed with the way that you broke down all of the isms that discuss in your book. But it is a very humbling experience to have those realizations, to be like, wow, I didn't realize that I had these biases, I had these, that I was coming from a perspective of ableism. And so I really appreciated how you brought so much attention to that in a very like firm way, but you were also gentle to be like, yeah, we can have
Right.
compassion for why we might have behaved that way and thought that way until now, while still being like, it matters and we need to be better.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you. And that's the thing is I think it's easy to get defensive, right? When we hear things like, we might have ableism, internalized racism, internalized, and we have privilege when it comes to these things. Because I had conversations when I've done workshops around body grief where people come um, and they're like, I wanted to work on body grief, but why are we talking about privilege? And I wanted to work on my body grief, but why are we talking about racism and ableism? And I'm like, well, because that's ableism.
Yeah, yeah,
And that's racism, because we have like the fact that I didn't know so heavily how ableist and I was and about the disabled experience, the disability experience, that was ableism.
mhm,
Um, and that's okay because that's just was my reality, but it was then my responsibility to figure that out. And it was a grievance for myself, but then it was also my responsibility to then teach others. And then it was also a burden to teach others because it was also, I'm sure y'all can relate, it was like, oh my God, I have to teach myself. I also am being oppressed by systems here.
mhm,
And then I also felt like I have a peephole into, as a white woman with all of the privilege I have, um, I have a peephole into the experience of someone of lesser privilege.
mhm,
And I was like, well, shit, this is a life lesson of so many ways. And
mhm.
that's when I was like, I need to dedicate my life to this. Because it's like maybe this is, I don't know if everything happens for a reason, but I was like, maybe this is my reason. And it worked because
Yeah,
I wrote a book about it. But
yeah.
um ableism is so rampant in this country because it's that one thing where the joke is still made and it's not corrected. Um, it's that one thing that is so deeply tied to all the other isms and it's not acknowledged.
Can you speak more to that? How it is kind of the root that connects all of the other isms?
Yeah, yeah. So really, disability is this large spectrum where it's mental illness, physical illness, um, a broken bone, temporary disability, total permanent disability. And people don't understand that, right? I know that when I was younger, I was taught that disability was just something that, that meant you were permanently paralyzed and in a wheelchair or you weren't. And that was just disability. That's truly what I thought.
Mm.
And so that made it a lot harder for me once I became disabled to accept help and to accept mobility aids when I needed them as tools for freedom. Um, and that was all ableism at its core. That was all a system meant to keep me working harder and that kept me sicker, really. But
Mm.
when a rollator, a mobility aid and a rollator were given to me, I was like, well, that's not good. That's bad. And really, it was a wonderful thing because it allowed me to be a, a citizen. It allowed me to be someone able to function in society rather than keep me at home.
Mm.
But so many people look at it as a shameful thing. And when I still go out with my mobility aids and they look different every day, people get confused and they're like, well, you're walking one day and you're sitting the other. I don't understand that. And I have to explain myself. That's ableism. And no, a lot, I wouldn't say no one, but that is becoming less and less when it comes to the other isms in our life, where people wouldn't question that as much because it's talked about a lot more. And we've been educated about that in class and in our schooling and in the news. Um, I just saw a movie recently where I just like loved it. Moxie. It came out a couple years ago with Amy Poehler, and then it was like girl in the wheelchair was like always the joke, the butt of the joke. And I was just like, why? Like, why does that have to be the case? Um, or, Grace and Frankie, I love that show. And
Mm.
it's like the girl who's always sick, one of the girlfriends, of the kids, she's like the joke. She's the one that's just like always the joke. And I'm like, why does this has to have to be the case? The people that are sick and gluten free or dairy free, they're the annoying girls. It's usually a girl too.
Mm.
Sexism. And it's always tied to that because people that are burdensome that's an ableist trope.
Yeah.
People that are too much, that's an ableist trope. Um, and so I could talk about this for days. And again, we break it down in the book, but it
Mhm.
really all goes down to that. And, people that are in brown and black bodies are so much more at risk of medical harm. And that is majorly ableist and systemic within the healthcare system.
Totally.
It just never stops.
So then you are obviously an advocate for change with something like ableism. You have a successful published book.
Mhm.
But if you are in day-to-day life encountering specific instances of ableism, like if people commenting on, whatever you're using that day, how do you combat it on a personal level?
You know, because it can create so much body grief, right?
Mm-hmm.
It depends. It depends where I am in that day. Let's say I just had a really hard pain day, or I had a really hard doctor's appointment. It might be a snark comment that I don't love, that I'm not proud of. Or it might just be a smile.
Mm-hmm.
And then I feel disappointed in myself because I'm like, I should have had that learning moment for that person. It should have been a learning moment. But then I remember it's not my job to change people's minds. And that's when I remember, I have a platform and I have these systems in place.
Mm-hmm.
But in an ideal world, that's when usually I'm able to say like my mobility aids are my tools. My mobility aids are my tools of freedom. I can use my legs, but it's best if I'm using my wheelchair.
Mm-hmm.
And but the thing is my boundary that I am working on constantly is my medical information is no one else's business.
Mhm.
Um, and I want to constantly let people know that, like for other people, like your medical information and your body grief is no one's business. And so when people ask questions, you set a boundary. If you want it to be a learning moment, beautiful, beautiful. But
Mhm.
it doesn't have to be, because you don't have to, like, you can give them a resource if you want. Give them, basically, go read a book, go read this. But,
Yeah.
it is not your job to teach all the time.
I think that's an important reminder because that weight of feeling your own body grief and then also feeling that empathy for all others in the chronic illness or disabled community, like that can feel like a heavy weight to bear, to want to change the world.
Yeah.
I know I have that about once a day where I'm like, okay, this isn't my job. I can't change this all at once. Um, I think that's a really important distinction. What I would love is for you to give an overview of how you define body grief. I know in the book you go into great detail with the phases and
Yeah.
but if you were just to have a brief overview of how you would define it for someone, and it is so much more applicable than I think people realize, but how would you
Yeah.
define it?
It's really the grief, or I'm not going to use that in the definition. It's honestly mourning a life that you thought you could have had with your body, due to any change that happens in your body. And there are 7 phases that are non-linear, multi-cyclical, that you can be in at any point, at any time. And there's no destination that we get to. And we always want a band-aid solution, right? But
Mhm.
this framework is not it. And if anyone ever promises you that, I would run or roll or get away from that in any way you can, because it's just not going to happen. Grief doesn't work like that. And this is, if anything, a guide to help you heal. And there's so much joy in it. Grief is not a scary, bad thing necessarily. I feel like we're taught that. There's despair, but there's a lot of joy and there's hope. Um, and this is a guide to help you, like, not burn out on your grief.
Yeah.
And it's change in your body and mourning what comes with living in a body. And so that's, perimenopause, that's hair loss, that's breaking a bone, that's living, gender dysphoria, that's chronic illness, disability, autoimmune diseases. I talk about a very core part of body grief, which is perceived body betrayal.
Mm.
That is a very important piece where we're constantly saying, my body betrayed me, my body betrayed me. But I argue that it's perceived body betrayal. Our bodies are actually doing everything it can to keep us alive, and it's, in the end, trying to find a homeostasis. And when it tries to find a homeostasis, it's not always perfect. Actually, the human body is super flawed. And that homeostasis usually has side effects of things like, you know illness or pain, and that's the part we don't like. So it's not betraying us, it's actually trying to keep us alive.
Yeah, that was something that really got me emotional as I was reading your book is um, that realization that our body is never betraying us. Its
Yeah.
only job, its only function is to take care of us.
Hmm.
And whether it's something as severe as like paralysis and, you know, any type of disability, or like you said, a food allergy or hair loss or perimenopause, menopause, things that most people will go through, that our body's never working against us. And that was such a powerful um, moment to be able to realize that because, and this is something else I wanted to ask you about because you describe the difference between body betrayal versus body trust, which I think is one of the most foundational pieces that everything kind of hinges upon, right? To be able to navigate through the grief is just recognizing when you're in which space. And when you describe at your wedding using your roller,
Hmm.
um, tell us what that moment was like for you.
It was terrifying, but it
Mm,
was also the most empowering thing ever because it was like we were in COVID. It was 2021 and it was at the beginning of 2021. So the vaccines just came out for elderly. And I mean, I think it was just elderly actually. Like that's what it was. So it was like a lot of my elderly relatives that were at my wedding and I was like and we were
mhm,
all
mhm.
masked.
Yeah.
And I had just had two of my biggest surgeries. It was my fusion from my CO to my C7 pretty much. Um, and it was really, they were really hard surgeries.
Mm,
And those surgeries saved me, but they also disabled me more. Um, and so I had become more visibly disabled than ever before, but no one had seen me because of COVID.
yeah.
And I was not able to get around at all like I used to. And so I really needed a rollator. And my mom and my aunts they gifted me this beautiful rollator through Byacre, which is a company out in Europe, and they're just like sleek, beautiful rollators. And I had internalized ableism because and ageism because I had the red rollator that my grandma had. Um, and it was called like the Cadillac of rollators. I'm
Yeah.
sure a lot of people know what they are. It's like if you're chronically ill or if you've ever had a surgery, it's like literally the one that you get prescribed in the States at least. It's like it has the black seat. It's like really big. And I was like just in tears being like, I don't want to go down the aisle with this. It just felt medical and it felt geriatric. And I know that's ageist,
Mhm,
but I was not 30 yet. And I didn't want that for myself. And there's two things that can exist at once. And there was a lot of nuance.
mhm,
And I also had not done the body grief work yet. Like there was a lot there. Um, and I acknowledged the ageism and I was like, I still am having a hard time. And so they gave me this beautiful, sleek rollator that I felt empowered by. And I was like, okay, I can do this. And it gave me freedom to dance and to like just have the time of my life. Um, but also like people were shocked, like they were like, "Oh, what's this?" And they asked a lot of questions, like a lot of questions.
mhm.
Um, and that's definitely when I started learning boundaries. I don't think I talked about that in the book much. I remember my sister pulled me aside, my older sister, and she is like boss. She could rule the world. And she was like, "You do not have to answer these questions." She was like, "People are asking so many invasive questions." She's like, "Stop answering these questions." She was like,
Mhm.
"Just go have your wedding." Um, so yeah, that was a really powerful moment for me.
Yeah, and what did that, it sounded like as if that were a little bit of like a seminal moment of body trust.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, sorry. I totally missed that part of the question.
That's fine. It's a perfect time to talk about body trust. Perfect segue.
Yeah. So
Good.
body trust is so interesting because it's the seventh phase of the body grief, healing process. And it's not a destination. And my editor fought this a little bit and we had to talk about it because she was like, what does that mean? Because body trust in other ways and frameworks is usually kind of like this destination. But for me, it's this part of the process. It's part of healing in that you dip your toe in. It's a place where you just kind of like tap in and you're like, it's a two-way street. After all of this work with healing and all of this hindsight that we've had, through dismissal and apology and shock and fight and fall and hope and hopelessness, you're able to say, I've done this work. And now I can trust that I'm going to show up for my body and my body is going to show up for me. And then eventually we slip out of it again. We can't just stay in body trust because think of our chronically ill bodies.
Mhm.
They change constantly and they have that betrayal there and or perceived body betrayal, but we can trust that if we can, the difference is we can sit back and be kind to ourselves. So when we have perceived body betrayal, we have to say, I'm going to be kind even if my body feels as if it's betraying me. And that is beautiful because that is trust. And then it's a two-way street. Our body's eventually going to trust us back. But that was a beautiful moment of body trust in it at the wedding where I was like, I needed that, or else I would have fallen, or I would have pushed myself way too hard, probably into a big, big, big flare. And I was able to enjoy myself. Um, and I've said this before, but I can probably say I've been in body trust like 10 times.
Mhm.
And, you know, I hope to be there so many more times. Um, but like people are always shocked when I say that, but like that's my embodiment of body trust, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think that's such an important thing to remember and something that you qualify right out the gate. It is cyclical. It is nonlinear. Like
Yeah.
these phases we are constantly going to be vacillating amongst.
Mhm.
And I think knowing that makes it a little bit easier when it does inevitably happen for us to be like, oh, I'm back in dismissal. And
Yeah.
you know what? That's okay. We're just going to kind of allow space for that and you get more practiced at being in those phases, which I think is really the goal, right? Is to just get practiced at allowing for that nonlinear version
Right.
of going through things. Um, one of the things that I let me back up. I feel like with chronic illness, disability, and body grief, there is so much growth that we are kind of forced to face.
Mm.
And just you describing how we're forced to face our own ableism, our own ageism, our own racism, our own sexism. Um, and in a roundabout way, I feel like I can find a lot of gratitude for that, as much as it's like I wouldn't wish, people to be in pain. It's like I have gratitude that we are able to learn things and grow. And this was especially evident when you talk about the existence of hope is not going to be possible unless there is hopelessness.
Mm. Yeah.
And I would love for you to speak to that and why that is, because I think understanding that is is really pivotal for mental health amongst people with any
Ooh,
type of illness and disability.
I love this question because I think that for a lot of people, hopelessness is probably the scariest part of the body grief process.
Mm.
And it's important to reiterate, I don't know if I have said it yet, that the phases aren't something I just like came up with. It's something I studied and realized this is something that everyone has been through. It's not something I was just like creating and it was like, these are new phases you're gonna go through. These are
Mhm.
phases we've all been through. And I just like was able to say, like, these are things we're going through, and I put like names to them.
Yeah.
So hopelessness is something we all go through, and it's probably the scariest because it feels like a pit. It feels just like despair. For some people, it shows up as suicidal ideation, and it can be just like darkness, but without light. With we need darkness and we need light, yin and yang, and it's was my favorite chapter to write because I think it's the one that always gets me through.
Mm.
Um, you know, I definitely have been in the pits of despair, and I think a lot of us can relate to that. But there's always, no matter what, no matter how long it takes, there's always a little bit of light that will shine through, no matter how small. I don't care how small it is. I really don't. In the eating disorder recovery space, I used to say, people used to say, like, you need a why to recover. And
That was
then,
my next question.
oh, okay, that's weird.
Weird.
And I then started realizing, yeah, you do, but first, just do it. Like, just recover for a doorknob. I don't even care. Like, just do it. Like, fucking do it. Like,
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
And so, even if the little light is just like a little piece of dust, hold on to it. Um, that is so important because that tiny bit of hope is going to get you like 1 inch out of the hole and chipping away at it a little bit more. We can't give up. Disabled and chronically ill people, especially, need more reasons to live, because the world is telling us the opposite. And God, like, it does get better. It does.
Yeah. Yeah. This is where I loved when you brought in the play without a purpose,
Hmm.
where it's so important to have a very sacred part of your existence where that exists.
Yeah.
Speak more to the importance of play without a purpose, what it means and how to incorporate it.
Yeah. I mean, I talk about in the book how I am definitely a recovered workaholic, and everything I ever did had to have a purpose to it. Like, I'd turn it into a profit or something like that.
Yeah.
I still kind of do that. I mean, I'm recovering.
Yeah.
But literally just playing for no reason is something we stopped doing. Like, when did we stop doing that as we grew old? Can you, like, when we were children, we would just play.
I
We would
know.
just play.
We stopped playing, we stopped laughing, we stopped throwing tantrums. We,
Yes, the tantrums.
that was
That's
a
so
big one.
therapeutic.
Yes.
Yes.
That was such a
Yes.
thing. I read it out loud to my husband. I was like,
Throw
I
a tantrum.
throw a tantrum. Like, I
And
think we're
men
all
actually
throwing
throw
tantrums.
tantrums every Sunday.
Well, see, there you go. At
Yeah,
the
they
front of
watch
the
football.
football.
And I know women watch football too, but they compose themselves and men don't. They're able to, like, scream at the TV,
Yeah.
all the things.
And
And
then pout. And for some reason, that's socially acceptable. But
I know they're able to ruin a whole Sunday.
yeah.
And we're just like, oh, boys will be boys. And it's like, well, let's throw tantrums, girls. Like, let's do it because it actually can regulate the nervous system.
Right? Yeah.
And play without a purpose, like making bad art. This is being talked a lot right now. Making bad art, and actually that is good art, like just getting your hands dirty and going outside and playing in the dirt. And I don't mean gardening, just literally playing in the dirt, playing
Yeah.
in the sand, um playing with paint, and it doesn't even have to be on a canvas. Like, one thing I did yesterday, I'm a artist and a painter. One thing I did yesterday that was so fun was I got some tissue paper, like, for gifts, and I just, like, painted on top of it. And then I got paper and I, like, put it on top of the paper and I took it off and I, like, was making imprints with it. And then I was
Mm.
like, that's pretty. And then I did nothing with it.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is so fun. And I was like, this is what kids do. And it brought out joy and hope. And I was like, my body did that. Like, my body did that because I can't do what I used to do. I can't go for walks. And I miss that. But I can make beautiful shit on random paper. That's
Yeah.
cool.
It's pretty cool, right? And like, why do we stop appreciating that? I know with my
Yeah.
6-year-old daughter, she's that way. And noticing where it's like, she'll have a pile of blank papers and just like cover each one onto the next one. And it's like she just has so much in her body that she wants to get out, right? And
Yes.
I'm not artistic like you or her in that way. I kind of create in different ways, but
Yeah.
to watch that, it's like that's amazing. Like she's like, it's not for her, it's not necessarily the outcome. It's just the experience of like cultivating imagination in her head for no other reason other than that she likes it and
That's so
wants
cool.
to express. Like it's very inspiring. So I love that you include that. Tell us more about your art. I completely forgot to put that in. I mean, I have
Oh,
it in your bio, but I forgot to allude to it in the beginning.
yeah,
Incredible
yeah.
art.
It's something that has just brought me, oh, it has like calmed my central nervous system in ways I never thought possible. Um, it I started like 3 years ago, really more seriously. Um, and I started it just for my nervous, like I started it just as
Just to
play.
regulate. Yeah.
And now I paint also for people, but it doesn't feel like work. Like I literally just paint. Um, and yeah, it's abstract and I continue to learn and grow and but it's not strenuous and I listen to music and I do this thing called intuitive painting. Um and it feels like my body's dancing again. Like
Oh,
I literally go to bed excited to paint the next morning and I'm like I think that's what passion is.
you're like, wait, am I a passionate painter?
Yeah, am I passionate?
Yeah, I'm
But
passionate.
it's that shift down
Wow.
perspective I talk about in the book
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
it's like I really miss that dancing, that full body dancing that I am no longer capable of. Of course I can still dance in certain ways, like in my wheelchair and I can dance, but I miss that full body dancing that I used to be able to do that I can't do anymore, but I can paint now and I can
Yeah.
do it in a different way. And my brush dances on the canvas and I'm listening to my music and I'm fully in it.
Totally.
And that is a form in which I heal my body grief.
Mm,
Um, and that takes, I'm just like, a lot of people that might listen to this are going to roll their eyes and be like, that's annoying, because that's where was in certain points in my eating disorder recovery where people would be like, you just gotta journal and meditate. And that's how they wouldn't say that, but that's what I'd hear. And I'd be
sure.
like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like I'm
Yeah.
suffering so hard and you're telling me to journal.
Hmm.
But that's not what they would actually be saying. They would be like, once a day, open your mind, get down your thoughts. But I would just hear, go journal.
Yeah.
And if people are hearing like go paint instead of dance, I hear that because that's where I was one day. Um, but give the book a chance because it will like break it down a little bit more.
For sure, it does. And I also think I kind of want to talk about the idea of identity because you referencing your dancing, like you talk about having danced your whole life up until you were diagnosed, right?
Yeah.
And how your flexible limbs and joints were sort
Mm-hmm.
of an advantage until they weren't
Yeah.
with your Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Um, I have to think that, speaking from my own experience, there's a lot of like identity crisis when you go through any type of like body changes that you didn't expect, especially if there's, you know, physical activities that you are literally unable to do anymore.
Yeah.
How do you grapple with separating out your true identity from maybe like your deliverables or your behaviors or, like how do you find a sense of identity when you're
So
grappling
hard.
with things like this?
So difficult. So difficult. I've come to a place now at least, who knows what will change, um, of peace. Um, like I really have. But I laugh because it's like a shit show. I think I wouldn't be at this place of peace without my eating disorder recovery.
Really?
Because like the resilience I had to build,
Mm,
um, stay with me here. The
Mhm.
resilience I had to build through my recovery work, whew, that was hard. Like, I was so attached to my body. I was so freaking attached to my body for so many years. And it started because I'm realizing now, after all this work I've done, it started because I think I had Ehlers-Danlos syndrome.
Mm.
And I'm learning that people with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, we have um 80% of our connective tissue, we 80% of our body is connective tissue. We have faulty connective tissue, if we're going to simplify it. And I was born with this. And when I went through puberty at 9 years old, that's when my life changed. That's when I became really depressed. That's when I got an eating disorder. That's when I got boobs. I got my period, and my personality changed a lot. Like, I got really quiet and insecure. And I became hyper aware of my body,
Mm.
hyper aware of it, my digestive system. Because again, your connective tissues are everywhere. It's your blood, it's your digestive system, it's your brain. And I do think my Ehlers-Danlos syndrome has something to do with that, because I think I was like hyper aware because of the world, because we were in the 2000s and misogyny and the male gaze and all of that. And I was a dancer, but also my body wasn't working like a normal body. And I think I was just hyper focused on it, and I felt different. And so
Mhm.
I was hyper connected to my body, and my body was my identity. And so I was always doing things like taking laxatives and not eating enough and over exercising. And um, I was always praised for my looks my whole adolescence into my young adulthood. And then when I went through my recovery, actually, like, exercise was really helpful in a healthy way. And I lived in Jackson, Wyoming. We went hiking. And then I was really proud of recovery. And it was like, again, like I said, work out, do what you like, be proud of what your body can do. And then smack, like, my world, like my head was smacked to the pavement. And I realized I wasn't listening to anything my body was telling me. I was totally separated from my body. I thought I was like in tune with my body. Absolutely not.
Mm.
And I had to rewrite my entire identity because my legs didn't work anymore. My brain hardly worked. My eyes weren't seeing the world. I was sleeping most of the day. I was on IV meds. I was in the hospital most of the time. I had my uterus taken out. Like, literally, I was like, oh my God, I, I say, like, I didn't feel, I felt completely taken apart. And I learned how to be at one with my spirit and my mind. And then my body came last. But my body was something didn't recognize at all. And that was the biggest grief of it all.
Mm.
But the thing is my body, I've lived in so many different bodies now. I've lived in a small body, in a big body, in a broken body, and it's going to keep changing. And I'm okay with that. But, and it's going to hurt. It's going to continue to change and hurt.
Mhm.
But it's the reconciliation that's really important, and the work that's really important, and going back and looking back and saying, let's get to know her and let's figure out her story. Um, and then moving forward and saying, how can we adapt?
Yeah. Wow. You know, I think that's awesome. That's something that we all can aspire to. I mean, I think we all want to aspire to, of just being in the space of reconciling what's happening and just facing it with how can we adapt. I think what can happen instead of that is, why is this happening to me? Why am I continually being afflicted with this
Mm.
thing and the next? And from the perspective of a therapist, how do you approach that type of existential questioning?
Yeah, it's only natural, right? Like
Yeah.
to ask yourself why. And I think everyone in their life gets there. And then I think some of us get there more than others, have more compounded body grief than others. Like take Marga in the story. She had a lot of compounded body grief. She shows up a lot in the book. But in the phase fault, where you're playing that blame game, and it's very, everyone reaches fault, where it's like, why me? Why this? Why is this happening? It's so important for us to allow the phases to wash over us. And when the why me comes there, it's important to say what now instead. Um, that is the most transformative statement I've learned through when talking to readers. The most transformative statement in the book. Because, even when we're Googling symptoms and we haven't been diagnosed or we have a new diagnosis, you're Googling symptoms and you're late at night and you're trying to figure out, why am I in a flare? It's like you're already in the flare. You will go to the doctor when you can. Stop Googling the symptoms and ask yourself, what now? What do I need right now? Is it a heating pad? Is it, you know, some food? Is it a hug? Is it a nap? Stop asking why. It already happened.
Yeah. And I think that is truly one of the most transformative elements of everything in the book, is it completely changes your focus and perspective, because why is so nebulous and what now is so much more concrete, and puts a semblance of control, back in your court to be able to be like, okay, I can't do anything about this, but what can I do now? So I really, man, I just think that's something that I'll say we all can work on, but I'm talking to myself. That's something I can really work on.
Me too. I get,
Yeah.
again, like I am in this all the time, right? Like I get there all the time where I'm like, oh my God, why do I feel this way? Like, what did I eat last night? And then I'm like, nope, not doing this.
Doesn't matter. Yeah, we're not doing that. What are some of your like pinpricks of light, your pinpricks of hope
Mm.
that in those darkest moments that will kind of carry you through?
Ooh, I love that question and how you worded that. For me, a big thing is my service dog, Weedy. Oh my God. He's my big black lab, love of my life service dog. He's my mobility service dog. But he's also like been my emotional support in every way. He goes everywhere with me and he is my soulmate.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh.
um Family.
Guide.
Yeah. I mean,
Oh, for the
he's,
best.
yeah, and I'm so lucky to have such an amazing family, but also like little tiny things for me. Um Color.
Mm.
I love just finding little bits of color. I love my morning coffee.
Tell us exactly how you do your morning coffee. I want to hear every detail.
Oh my God. Okay. I'm a French press girly. Like I
Mhm.
travel with it.
Love it.
I really like a good dark French roast or a dark Italian roast. I like my coffee crunchy. My sisters are always like, why is this so thick? It's really not, though. My grandma was here this weekend and she was like, this is delicious. So I think my sisters just like weak coffee.
Mhm.
And then I do the marshmallow flavored nut pods
Oof.
um in a frother.
Mhm.
And I do like that on top, and then I put a little drizzle of honey and cinnamon.
Chef's kiss.
So good. What's yours?
You know, I've
Are you a
kind of
coffee
gone back
girl?
and forth. Oh, I'm a big coffee girl because right now I'm in the phase of just like a basic bitch latte. Like I love espresso and I
Yes.
don't even need flavor in it. Like there's just something about a hot latte with foam that it's like
So good.
it does it for me, you know? But Samira was saying earlier that we were just at a patient day in Hawaii and there was this cutest little like coffee shop in the hotel and I was getting this cold brew with like this thick cream on top, but it wasn't super sweet. And I think I had it like four times over the
Oh,
course of a few days. And I was like, do I have a new favorite coffee? Do I need to buy
yeah.
coffee machine at home? Do
Oh
I
my
need to ask what
God.
they're using and buy the exact same thing?
Yes. Yes. It just hits
So
different.
it does. Okay, but when we're in Chicago, I want to try your coffee. I want
I
to
will
have
make you some.
exactly as you make it.
Yeah.
What's next for you? What are you excited about? What are you looking forward to?
Ah, my goodness. You know, I mean, I'm excited to find myself again. Right now, I'm in a really new chapter of my life. A big new chapter. I'm separated from my husband. It's a big deal.
Yeah, that is a big.
Uh, I'm finding myself again, and I'm excited about it. I'm really excited about it. And so, whatever, wherever that takes me, I'm gonna be in my art. I'd love to
Mm,
write another book, whatever, wherever that takes me, and you know, it's just I'm healing myself in a new way, but I'm happy.
yeah, yeah. If you could write another book right now, what direction would you take it? Like if you could
Ooh.
have it finished by tomorrow, what's top of mind that you would create right now?
Something about I'm so passionate about letting women know that they're not burdens.
I'm first in
Yeah.
line. I'll pre-order. I'm there. I'm ready.
Yeah, I feel like that there's so many layers and it's just everywhere, especially with chronic illness and disability, but there's so many stories to be told about that. And yeah, I'm tired of that narrative.
Yeah. Are you actively seeing clients right now? Is that part of your
I'm
main
not.
work? Okay.
No. Right now I'm painting and I'm taking care of my health and
And you have a nonprofit, right?
yep, and
Yeah.
I'm doing a lot of, charitable work and yeah.
What's some of the favorite, what are, I'm trying to think how to phrase this. Like what work are you doing lately that's really been lighting you up?
Ooh, it's a lot. Honestly, the simplest answer I think is connecting with people. Um, Connecting with people right now, even just if it's connecting with people about the book, um, through email, on social media, through community. I think that's been like the most empowering thing is like connecting with people about body grief.
Yeah, which I feel like like we said in the beginning, it's ubiquitous. Everyone has it in
Yeah.
some way, form, or another.
Because it's something that continues to resonate with people on so many different levels,
Yeah,
through motherhood, and I'm like always shocked where it resonates with people. And I'm like, oh my God.
totally. Yeah, yeah,
And when people pick up the book, it just makes me so happy that they feel seen.
yeah. Which, wow, what a gift to give someone to feel
Mhm.
seen. I see, Sumara, you've got your hand up.
I do. I just have a very quick question. First of all, I'm enjoying every bit of this. So enlightening, so inspiring, and I've learned a lot. Jane, we have a huge global community at TSF of people who, like you, have very, very compelling stories, really incredible character development, growth and all the things. And people are always wondering in our community, how does one start a book? Like where does one even begin if this was something that someone wanted to do in our community? So any advice or insights to those who might be aspiring to write their stories, pen to paper?
Oh my gosh. Well, first, just start writing, like I think that's the most important part is like get your thoughts down on paper, even if it's just like bullets and pictures and whatever it is. For me, my process was pretty streamlined. Um, I had my book doula, which was Ruby, and she wrote. She's an amazing author. She wrote Sober Curious and Women Without Kids. And she was like my pre-editor editor. And she helped me put together my proposal. And then I reached out to different lit agents. And I found a lit agent and they signed me on. And then we put together like, I think it was like a 50-page chapter outline. But what lit agents are looking for is niche content or a niche idea that like hasn't been out there, or a niche idea, an original idea, and for the writer to have um, expertise. And then they also care about, social media platform, because one thing I have learned is no matter how big the publisher, you end up selling your book. You are the one that sells your book. um, because the book world is just so huge now, like there's so many books out there. And so then they pitch the book to a bunch of publishers, and then you wait for those people to get back to you. And then there's like a bidding war. That was my experience. It was a really positive experience for me. There's also self publishing. Um, but I would say the first step is just like writing, getting it down, finding a lit agent. Um, that's like your best bet.
Yeah. I uh I will echo what Samara said that we have hundreds of patients across the globe that each have such special, unique, and powerful stories. And especially in the world of rare disease, I feel like those are so important. And just to hear, even though, you and I don't have the same condition, even though a lot of the patients at our foundation, and like we might
Mhm.
not have the same, conditions or disease states, but there is there's so much overlap. There's so many parallels that as we continue telling our stories, the rising tides will lift all ships. And as
I
we
love that.
together as people with rare diseases and disability and chronic illness, I just think that's I'm glad Sumar asked that because I think it is such an important part of creating awareness and creating visibility and supporting others and also just supporting yourself, right? Like creating the world that you want to live in by speaking about the things
I
that matter
absolutely.
and that other people might not even be aware are problems. So I'm glad she asked. That's a great question,
It's a
Samara.
really important question.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. I don't know if anyone in our audience has questions, but I will say one of our audience members, Johanna, she also has NMO. She's from Colombia and she's our ambassador liaison. This was actually her idea. She came to me and she was like, have you heard of this book, Body Grief? She's all the way in Colombia and she read your book. She loved it. So she's actually here in the audience. So are some others. So if anyone has any questions, by all means, um, please go ahead and ask.
I love that. I
I
love
love, thank you for
so
that.
much. Yeah. Yeah.
Popular in Colombia, boo.
I love it.
All of I know. It should be required reading because man, there's so much that
Thank you.
I feel like is good to support yourself and also just good education on how to be more aware of your biases and your privilege and not to be ashamed about it, but how to just know better to do better, I think is just you just do such a good job of that. So
Yeah.
I am so grateful that you have taken the time to be with us and just share your wisdom and your loveliness and
Thank
your
you
coffee
so
order.
much.
All of it is valuable.
Thank you so, so much. I loved this and I really appreciate y'all. And yeah, I had a blast.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. And I just look forward to seeing all of the things from you. And
Thank you.
I just am so grateful that I'm now acquainted with your story and your wisdom.
Thank you. Have a great night.
All right.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.